It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and it's time for a new month. We have the month of October now, October 5th, 1990, and we have 5 movies to look at today. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start with the first movie, and that was Steven Seagal in his third film as a leading actor. This is Marked for Death. Interesting fact here, this is the only movie Steven Seagal made when he was making movies at Warner Brothers that was not released by Warner Brothers. This was released by 20th Century Fox, and this is one of the few movies he made outside of the Warner Brothers, because most of his movies were at Warner Brothers, even up until Exit Wounds, and then he made I can't remember the name of it. I think it was Half Past Dead for Sony the year after Exit Wounds came out. But this is the only movie that actually came out during Seagal's popularity that actually was not a Warner Brothers release. This was a Fox release, and it did pretty well. It was an unexpected hit. It was the #1 movie in the country for 3 weeks straight. So they did something. He was doing something right with this, and this movie really is what you'd expect to see from Steven Seagal. It's a movie that doesn't have the best script. It's a very formulaic script, but the action sequences are still very fun, and Steven Seagal has some charisma to him in this movie. I mean, he's kind of decently good in this movie. Like, it's hard to say because of how much the later movies that he would make would get a little more pretentious, and his acting would slowly but surely decline. Like, he really wasn't giving a crap anymore. But in these early movies, you could still see that he was still enjoying what he was doing, and he definitely shows it on screen here. Keith David's also in this movie. He's very good. Joanne Pakula's in this. Some other notable names in here: Kevin Dunn, Daniel Harris from the Halloween 4 and 5, and Danny Trejo, Terry Weigel. Some notable names in here. Like I said, it's a movie that it is what it is. You can pretty much tell what it is, and if you like Steven Seagal's other movies like Above the Law and Hard to Kill, this is definitely right up your alley, and it is what it is. It's nothing spectacular, but it's pure Steven Seagal action at peak Steven Seagal action, pretty much. Like, it's much better than most of his direct-to-video movies, so you take whatever you get from this. So there you go. That's Marked for Death. So that was the biggest new release this weekend. But let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and it's a re-release of a Disney classic. It's the 50th anniversary re-release of Fantasia. This was actually the last time Fantasia was ever released in theaters, this was kind of near the end of when Disney used to have the thing where every 7 to 8 years they would re-release one of their classic movies, and this was the last time Fantasia got a re-release, and then Fantasia wouldn't return to the big screen until Fantasia 2000, near the end of the decade. But what can you really say about Fantasia that really hasn't been said already? It's a great movie, a bold experiment for Walt Disney and the studio. It maybe didn't live up to the expectations that Walt Disney wanted. He wanted to make this a roadshow type of a movie where he would make new movies of these every single year. But unfortunately, the numbers didn't really come out as well the first time around this movie came out. But it did find a following. It did find a following through the re-releases, through the fact that it was just a great movie overall. But sadly, those early dreams of what Disney wanted to do with this never really came true, and it really kind of dinged the studio a little bit back in the 1940s. But since then, it has grown with much more appreciation, and for obvious reasons. Each of the segments all carry a great sense of memorability to them. And it's kind of cliche to say this, but if I have to pick the best one, it's got to be The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's not only a great Mickey Mouse cartoon, but it's one of the most creative and inventive shorts you will ever see. Just some of the animation and how the music works so well to it. It's great. It's great to look at. A close second is Night on Bald Mountain at the end of the movie with it's a short that's tense, scary at times. The animation on Chernobog looks incredible. And when it ends with the rendition of Ave Maria, it has some of the most spectacular animation that you will ever see. And of course, it helps once again with the great music overall in this movie. I really don't have anything much more to say about this one. It's a true film classic, bold for the time, one of the most impressive achievements Disney had done up to that point. It's one of those classic movies that still holds the test of time. Still an amazing movie all around. I don't think I need to say you have to see it, but you probably have already seen it. But if you haven't, get off your butt and go see it, man. It's definitely worth the watch. Can't really say the same thing about the next movie, which is Anthony Hopkins and Mickey Rourke in Desperate Hours. Based off of a movie from the 1950s from William Wyler, had Frederick Forrest in it. This is Desperate Hours with Mickey Rourke and Anthony Hopkins. You also have Mimi Rogers, Kelly Lynch, Lindsay Krause, Elias Koteas, David Morse, Shawnee Smith. Good cast overall, but yeah, this movie is not very memorable. It's a very bad movie. It's a really underwhelming movie when you look at everything it has going for it. You have this great cast. You have Michael Cimino, who just 12 years prior to this directed a Best Picture winner in The Deer Hunter, and seeing his career crashing and burning ever since Heaven's Gate, leading him to this movie. It's not really his fault, though, because the studio did interfere. The producers of the film mutilated the movie. It ended up being, and I think that's why the movie ended up being as bad as it was, because the editing was so terrible. There were so many plot holes. There are deleted scenes and stills that show a few of these these sequences that were cut out, and I don't think there's ever been an official release of that original cut that Cimino had with this. But this didn't help him with his career comeback at all. Like I said, after Heaven's Gate, his career really took a nosedive. Nothing really clicked for him as much as The Deer Hunter did. But yeah, Mickey Rourke is just terrible in this movie. He has this voice that's so nasally and so annoying, and it's like, how am I supposed to take this guy seriously as the villain? I mean, there's no way you can do that. None whatsoever. And much the fact that he actually was nominated for a Razzie Award for this. And if Andrew Dice Clay didn't make Fort Fairlane, then he probably would have won it, because this was really a bad performance by him. It's just a disappointment of a movie. It's a movie that probably could have worked in better hands, and if the studio didn't mess around with it. But it's very bad. It's a very badly written movie. I don't think I have anything more to say about this one. Desperate Hours, just desperately pathetic. That's the best thing I can say about it. But anyway, on to the next movie, and we have the first ever NC-17 movie since the rating was implemented, and that was Henry and June. So like I said, Henry and June was the first movie to ever receive an NC-17 rating, which actually came 1 month before this movie came out. It was still the X rating before they decided to change it to NC-17, which basically meant no children under 17 would be admitted. So there was a lot of hype, and that hype did kind of dampen the box office for this movie. This movie didn't do well financially, probably because of that, and it's a shame because the movie itself is actually pretty damn good. Like, it's a really good, well-made erotic thriller. There are good performances all around here. I think Fred Ward's pretty good here, as well as Uma Thurman. Maria de Medeiros is very good here. She was also in Pulp Fiction. A good cast overall. Richard E. Grant, Kevin Spacey, Gary Oldman's in this. It's an overall enjoyable movie. It's a well-made film. It has its intentions in the right place. Phil Kaufman, I think, did a pretty good job working around this rating that he had been dealing with, and he actually made a pretty decent movie. But like I said, I think it was because of that hype that was built up that this was going to be an NC-17 movie, and that all the eyes were on this to see if this was going to be a success, and if other studios were going to follow in that same pathway, if this movie was a success. And unfortunately, I don't think it was a big success. But I don't think it was the success that Universal was hoping for, because not a lot of other studios really got to do the movie that they really got to use that rating all that much. And even when they got to use it, like 5 years later, we'd have Showgirls. That movie was not a big hit at all. It was a huge financial failure. It was a critical failure. And it was just not a good movie whatsoever. It just felt like an exploitation movie, and a bad exploitation movie. Some would say it's so bad it's a good exploitation movie. But we'll get to that one when that comes out in 95. But Henry and June overall, I think, is a much better movie than I think a lot of people give it credit for. It's a movie that I think is very underrated. I think it's a movie that uses the sex scenes and the erotic stuff here very well. The acting doesn't overshadow everything. The movie looks visually gorgeous. I think the music is very well done. It's a really good movie, a very underrated film. If you can handle the movie's subject matter, I'd say definitely give it a watch. I think it's a movie that definitely deserves to be seen more than what I think it gets the credit for. So, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Barry Levinson's Avalon. So Avalon comes after Barry Levinson just was knocking it out of the park with 2 back-to-back critically acclaimed Oscar winners with Good Morning Vietnam and then Rain Man. And there was a lot of pressure on him with Avalon. This was a movie that was the third film of his tetralogy of Baltimore films. Movies like Diner, Tin Men, and then later on in the 90s we get the fourth movie in this, Liberty Heights. And I think the movie is okay. I don't think it's one of Barry Levinson's best movies overall. I think he's done a lot better movies than this. It's one of those movies where I think the visuals and the acting really stand out more than the story do. The story, I think, kind of... I don't know what it is, but the story kind of reminds me of a mix between, of all things, An American Tail and The Godfather. 2 things I never thought you would put together, but it feels like it's one of those movies. It doesn't really feel like a competently made original script that Levinson's used to doing with something like this from his series of Baltimore movies. But like I said, the acting overall really makes it stand out more here than most of the rest of the movie does, despite the visuals. The visuals look very good. You have Alan DeVio, who does the cinematography for this, and he does a pretty good job here with the material he's given. The cast, like I said, is great. Armin Morrill-Stahl is very good here. Aidan Quinn. You have Elizabeth Perkins, Joan Plowright, a young Elijah Wood, Kevin Pollak. Just a great cast overall. It's one of those movies that I think it's okay, but I feel like it could have been a whole lot better considering what Levinson had done up to that point. And the movie was not a big hit financially. It was a critical success. It did get nominated for a couple of Oscars, but other than that, though, it's a movie that's really been forgettable. It's one of those movies where it doesn't really get talked about all that much, probably for good reason. It's, like I said, it's not a bad movie, but I don't think it's what Levinson really wanted to do with following 2 successful movies in Vietnam and Rain Man. And, yeah, that's just kind of my overall feeling on it. I'm glad I saw it, but to say that this is one of Levinson's best movies is probably not the right choice to go with here. Avalon's just okay. I mean, I think he did better with his next movie, Bugsy, which came out the year later. But as I said before, we'll get to that one when we get to that one in '91. So that's my thoughts on Avalon. So with that said, that's going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time around, we've got 7 movies to look at, including Memphis Belle, the war drama, James Belushi and Michael Caine and Mr. Destiny, Winona Ryder in Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael. We've got Blood Fist 2, The Hot Spot, To Sleep with Anger, and The Spirit of 76. So 7 movies to look at the next time around, and we'll do that tomorrow. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another new episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and until then, take care.